Well, it's another video about my Hjalmar engine. And last video we painted the engine. This was just to get a solid surface on anything that could rust, so it not rust anymore. And I don't really care how it looks, but I like the engine to look clean and nice. And the benefit of having an engine that is clean is of course that you can spot problems. You can see a leak and you can see if there is any issues anywhere on the outside, if something is getting particularly hot, or if there is dust coming from the alternator belt and all these kind of things. So having a clean engine is I think it is rather important. And the way that this engine looked was really bad, and there was obviously some leaks and so on, and they of course have reappeared now because I'm using the boat now to find all these problems before I pull it from the water. So yeah, this is kind of a shakedown period, and I'm testing out the boat and learning how to sail and so on. So that's videos that's coming up soon. And yeah. So this video is going to be about fitting the new oil pipe, because when I painted the engine I put the old oil pipe back onto the engine so that it would so I wouldn't get paint on the surfaces that seals up these couple of washers that seals up the Banjo connections towards the engine block. So yeah, I mounted the old oil tube after I've cleaned away all the corrosion and so on. I got into good metal all over the engine and painted it, and then I removed the oil pipe again and yeah, put a new one on. That was not quite as straightforward as I had expected. The old oil pipe corroded really badly, and I'm not sure, it could be that the new one is made from copper, and that would be great. And if it is, I really wouldn't paint it, but I'm not sure, and I don't know if it helps to ask the dealership. I don't think they're gonna know. But I don't know if the Banjo connection, like connection points, is made out of copper. So if they are made out of steel, I still have to paint them. So I figured I'd just paint the whole tube. So that's why. Yeah. So hopefully the new one won't corrode. And it was painted from the factory, and that paint job was really crappy. It wasn't sticking to to the pipe at all. It came off really easy. Also, it fits rather well onto the engine, but not 100%. So you're gonna have to do some modification, some bending and some tweaking to get it to sit correctly and yeah, be able to like mount the start motor, which was a big issue. So yeah, enjoy. This is gonna be a bit of me struggling. So, and now the wind is picking up, and the enclosure is trying to tip over the camera. So I'm gonna end the intro. Hope you enjoy the video. Please like and subscribe. Today I'm gonna put an extra layer of paint on my brand new oil pipe for my Hjalmar engine. This is the external oil pipe that is transporting the oil on the outside of the engine. This is the part number. And the old pipe was really corroded, so I had to do something about it. I wouldn't trust it, so I ordered a new one. They're not cheap, but I think it is a wise decision to put a new one on if the old one is starting to deteriorate a little bit. So this is what it looks like. There is a thin layer of paint on it. I can see that on these I don't think the camera is going to focus. On these surfaces there is also a little bit of paint in some places. They're fairly good, but I'll just give them a quick scrub with a sandpaper. Don't need much, it's just to make sure I have a clean surface. And these surfaces, I don't want any paint on them because these are surfaces that seals for the oil. So there's a copper washer that's going to sit on these. So I just want them to be clean. And I guess they're pretty good. These are Banyo connections. Now, good connections. So when I'm going to paint this, to avoid to get paint on these surfaces, I've made up these small bolts. It's a M8 bolt, plain and simple. And I've taken 2 washers, and I've covered one side of the washers with masking tape. So I just put the bolt through, put the other washer with the masking tape towards the pipe, and I just turn the nut back all the way in. So of course I want the washers to sit as far away from this point as possible, so that I can get paint all the way down. That should be good. And I've made up one for each of these connection points. I guess you could get by with just using a washer, but there is a chance you would get some paint seeping in because there's no soft material to seal up this area, so I wouldn't trust it. So the masking tape is just acting as a kind of a gasket to keep the paint from going onto the seal surface of the Banyo connection. It is not necessary to paint this pipe, not at all. It's just me taking some extra measurements to keep the corrosion away. The old pipe is corroded badly because there was a leak from the exhaust elbow, and that, as I was dripping down, was splashing some water onto the oil tube, I guess, over time, and it started to corrode quite badly. But I think Yanmar sells quite a bit of these tubes, so I guess it is a problem. I don't know. This is my first Yanmar engine. So I'm just gonna snug up the bolts that I've put on. It's not much, just to make sure they're putting a little bit of a squeeze on there. So I'm just using a screwdriver to tighten stuff. So it's just to make sure there is a good squeeze. That's all it takes. So now it is just one little thing I have to do. I have to wipe it off with some degreaser before I paint it. This is the stuff that I'm gonna wipe off the part before I paint it. It's yeah, we call it red spirit in Norway. It is flammable liquid. It doesn't leave any yeah, greasy remains when it's been wiped off. So it's completely clean when this is gone. So I just put some on the paper. And this is a brand new part, so it's fairly clean in the beginning. So it's just a light wipe off, just to make sure everything is as good as it gets. The old oil pipe, I'm gonna repaint it, try to treat the rust as best as I can and keep it as an emergency spare part on board the boat if I'm cruising far away in remote places. But when I'm cruising at the Norwegian coast, I guess I will just leave it at home, keep it with my spare parts for the boat. To be honest, the paint has just chipped off in a few spots here, like right there, and that looks like copper to me. So it could be that I stopped making these out of steel and switched to copper instead. I don't know, but I'm gonna paint it anyway. So now it's ready for paint. So I will put the plastic bag down here so we don't contaminate it in any way, and I will get my paint. So this is the paint that I'm going to be using. It's Hammerite paint. It's the blue color. It's the same color that I used on the Yanmar letters on the heat exchanger. So I want all the fuel pipes and this oil pipe, so all the piping outside of the engine is going to have this color. Just I don't know, I think it's cool. So perhaps it will look stupid, but it's my boat, so if I want a stupid engine, it's my choice. I'm gonna put the camera on time-lapse, and because watching me paint my oil tube with a small brush, it cannot be much fun, so I'm gonna speed it up a little bit. So I hope I managed to stay in the shot for most of the time, but this is what it looks like. Should be all covered in paint now. The temperature around here is really low, so it's going to dry really slowly. So could work. It can also work. So I can just sit like that in the ice and dry up. So this is what the oil pipe came out like. Let's see, I have missed a little spot here and something, but it's very little, something here as well. So this is the first coat. Looks like it has to be another one. I also ordered one of these bolts. It's a Banjo connection bolt for the cylinder head lubrication port or entry, or yeah, where the tube connects to the cylinder head. This is the part number for it. I wish I had ordered one more for a different location. These are the washers for these Banjo connections, and I guess this is the washers for the larger Banjo connection. That is the oil entry point of the tube. This is where the oil enters this tube, and it's then carried up to the cylinder head and further on to the crankshaft lubrication points, or camshaft lubrication point on the side of the crankcase. So yeah, when I was removing corrosion from the engine, scrubbing and doing my best, I removed the old oil tube because I didn't get access to all the points. It's curled all around the engine, so I removed it. But before I painted the engine, I mounted it back on so I wouldn't get paint on the surfaces where the washer is supposed to sit against. So now we're going to remove it. So these are the washers for the largest, sketchy, for the largest Banjo connection. Fits nicely. This is the one that I would like to have replaced, but yeah, I didn't order it. I didn't know it was this rusty before it was too late. But as you can see, this has a rather large hole in it. This is where the oil leaves the engine, goes into the tube to be transported out to the different locations. So here is the other one that's going to go on the inside of the oil tube. So here we have some more of these. Let's see. One for each of the small ones. And the ones that goes on the inside of the oil tube. And of course I have to open a brand new packet for the remaining one, but that's okay. As long as I get new gaskets on. There's one for the last one as well. I'll put these back in the Ziploc bag. So I have them for some of the other jobs on the engine, because there is more to come. So here we are. Let's mount the oil tube. I have prepped the holes on this engine as well. Moved the old washers and cleaned off loose paint, so it's ready to go on. So this is where the oil comes out of the engine and goes into the oil tube. It's painted all around, and since the tube was here with washers on it, I've got a clean surface to put the gasket on, so that should be good. This is the connection point for the, that's a bit out of focus. That's when you're trying to do close-ups with the GoPro. It's more like a no-go. Oops, that was nice. With the light going bananas. But this is the surface, it looks rather good. And also it's difficult here behind this tube. Let's see, there's one, and there is the other one. We can see it perhaps like this. Yeah. So that's the last one. So I'll put the camera back on its stands. So here comes the oil tube. Go. So I guess I will have to start fitting it on the other side of the engine, because the other side of the engine is way closer to where it should be. So then the first one to get mounted is the one at the cylinder head, I guess, because that keeps it at in the right height orientation, and it's kind of balanced point. So I guess I will start with this one, and I will just put this one almost all the way in, so it can still move quite a bit, and then I will try and mount these 2 points. And in the end I will bend the last connection point in place. So that's the plan right now. Let's try and mount the next one. So I put the bolt slightly through the oil pipe, and I try to locate the inner washer around the bolt, push the bolt through all the way like that, and try to enter the hole like that. And it's the last one, putting it through the oil pipe. Take the last or inner washer, try to find a position that I can hold it and mount it and whatever, so it's a bit tricky. Yeah, it's not too bad. It's getting a yep. So let's try and get threads going as well. So now these 3 bolts is mounted, and I can and I'm going to show you how it all sits, and we're going to try and mount the last one. All of these connection points is loosely fitted, so they are not on there properly. They're just, yeah, you can wiggle them about. And as you can see, on this side there's a huge gap. So I need to move this tube or pipe or whatever down into the position where it should be. So now we are getting closer. Hope I don't bend it so much that the paint is cracking. I don't know, it could be. But now we put the inner washer on here, and we try to line the bolt up with the threads. And like that, it is partially mounted. Still, we have to adjust the tube a bit so it doesn't catch on this area here. So I can already tell that I've cracked the paint a bit. So like that. So that's an area I have to attend to, because when you bend the pipe and it's painted, it's really, you cannot bend it really far. So I will give a touch of paint job around here after everything is securely mounted. So for now it looks good. Just move the camera over to this side. Now I'm trying to get all of these bolts snugged up a little bit. And of course, now when there is some tension in the pipe, the bolts is a bit too heavy to turn by hand, so I'll just help them along with a spanner. So I guess if the pipe was originally in need of so much adjustments on the factory, when they mounted it as well, the paint would chip off even at the factory. So I guess that's why they rust so bad. That's just my theory, I don't know, but it seems logical to me. So I don't know, that's just in theory. So now I'm just snugging this up. I guess perhaps I made a, no, it seems to be fine. That's snug. This is almost snug. It's not tight yet, but it's snug. Here is the last one. It's the small ones. That's also snug now. And then it is the last one. It is the big one. Yeah, like that. And now I do notice that over here, this square block that all the tubes ties into touches on the cylinder head right about here. So that's not perfect, I guess. That's a short distance, it's not easy to move. So I'm not sure what I'm gonna do, because this is a short distance. If I move this one out, put a little stress on this area here, and it follows the engine quite nicely. So I'm tempted to just leave it like this, because I guess it will just stabilize it a bit, I guess. And also over here there is supposed to be a metal clip that goes around the tube and holds it onto this bolt. I have the original one here, but I was thinking of mounting a new one, because that is made of standard metal, that rusts. But I have one stainless from a Yamaha outboard engine with a bigger hole in it. So I was going to use that, and I'm going to put some rubber hosing around this tube so it doesn't scratch the paint too much. So that was the plan anyway. So I guess I will mount that tomorrow and I will yeah, try to decide what to do about this predicament here. So what I ended up doing, I loosened this bolt a little bit so this could swing outwards. Then I was bending this tube out some more down here by the where it was touching before, so I moved it even further out, and then I moved this part of the pipe this way so that this section would swing this way, and that would bend this tube a little bit outward as well. And now I'm reasonably happy with how this tube sits. The only thing that I'm worried about now is that is enough clearance here for the starter motor, so perhaps I have to put some blocking behind here and force this tube a little bit further into the engine block. So I'm gonna grab the starter motor and we're gonna try and see if it fits. So the starter motor is a heavy beast, but I'm not going to mount it perfectly yet. I'm just going to slide it on and see if there is enough clearance for the oil tube. Nope. It is touching the oil tube quite badly down here. The screw chipped off the paint right away, so that has to be attended to. Now I'm not sure if I have enough clearance. Now there is a little bit, but it's not much. So I guess that has to come out some. Perhaps forward a bit like that. It gives it a bit more space. Like so. And as you can see from the paint that comes off, the Yamaha paint comes with it. So the Hammerite paint that is blue takes off the Yamaha paint that's grey. So yeah, the Yamaha paint doesn't stick really well, but we will make another attempt. And still it does not fit. I have to move it quite a bit more in to this area. Or perhaps when the starter motor is, I'm just going to try and mount it all the way in. See how that goes. Because when this edge of the housing is past the tube, there is a lot more space in the back there. So I'm going to have a look at that now. Now there is a lot of space, actually. And again, the Elmo paint comes off with the Hammerite, so yeah. Perhaps I should have removed the Elmo paint before I mounted it. Now I have plenty of space around the starter motor. The tube is not touching anywhere else. So what I guess I will do then, I will remove the starter motor. I'll put some more blue paint on the oil tube, and I will mount the starter motor while the paint is wet to get, so I don't scratch off any more paint, because then the paint will just seal up. So I guess that has to be the plan for now. Otherwise this tube is just gonna rust again. So what I've done, I've put some masking tape on the engine block. I've bent the tube to go around everything without touching in any place. So now it looks good, and as you can see where I have bent the pipe, the paint comes right off. So I need to put some new blue paint on it, and I'm going to fit the starter right away, which is located over here. So if I should touch the paint, it will just I guess while the paint is wet, it will just recover the surface by itself. So yeah, that's the plan. So I'm just putting a solid layer of paint on. It's not an issue if it runs or anything. This is just to prevent stuff from rusting. It's behind the starter motor, so you won't be able to see it anyway. Just going to put a really thick layer on this side where the starter motor might touch the tube, like so. It doesn't touch the tube after it's mounted, it's just on the way in. It might interact with the tube a little bit. Color of the metal on the tube seems to be like copper now, but it's really hard, so I don't know if it is copper or if it is some sort of copper alloy. I don't know, but it was painted from the factory, so I guess it should be painted. I don't know, but I put paint on it, and I will keep an eye on it and see how stuff goes. So I guess that's about it. Just had a little mishap on one of the vinyl connections on the other side, so that's also been covered now. So here comes the heavy piece of starter motor. Try to slide it in. without damaging anything. Like that. Well, see, put the upper nut all the way in, and that should be secure. Like that. I can still access this banjo connection down here. I have clearance for the tube all the way around. So now I can tighten the tube up. That's about good. And I'm gonna use 14mm spanner on the other ones. So, put the spanner on and gently move it along until it's tight, but not too tight. Banjo connections it's a bit weak because they're hollow, so you have to be a bit careful. That, and the last one. Yep. And the oil tube is mounted. You can see, sneaks around the engine. Here is the part that was so rusty before, the old tube, and you can see it goes down. So yeah, that's what it looks like. Next fiddly job is to remove the masking tape that I just put on carefully, so I don't ruin the paint I just put on. So one little bit at a time. Switch hand and continue. Yeah, I have to fix a little bit. I touched the paint, of course. So I'm gonna put the camera away so I can use both hands, and we're gonna try and make this look good. As you probably noticed, that was not 100% a success. I did remove the starter again and touched up the paint on the tube once more without any masking tape. So now it's just to tighten the bolts. I also put a layer of fresh paint, so that's still wet between the starter motor and the flywheel housing. So when I tighten the starter motor, all the paint is squished out, and all small cavities and stuff will have paint on it, but there will be no area with bare metal between them. So It's not completely necessary, I just wanted to do it this way.